Hello and welcome. This is our third installment of the guest speaker series at the Urbana Band Camp. We are joined today by Marlon Moran and Master Sergeant Randy Rivera. Everybody watching at home knows Marlon is our assistant director. He's been working with the brass and the whole band here since before I was here, so 2008, not 5. So yeah. Marlone's been with the band for a while. Before that, way before that, he marched with the Velvet Knights Drum Corps out of California in 1993, and then was a member of the United States Marine Corps in the Commandant's Own Marine Drum and Bugle Corps from 95 to 99. And that is what brings us to our subject today, talking about the Marine Drum and Bugle Corps and a career in marching music. And our special guest today, Master Sergeant Randy Rivera, is a brass instructor and lead soprano bugler with the drum corps. And so Randy also has some experience in DCI, marched with VK, as well as the Blue Devils. And so I'm going to leave it to these two guys to chat about some stuff, and I'll be back with some student questions in a little bit. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Mike. Hey, Master Sergeant Rivera, thank you again for being with us. Really, really appreciate you. If you could just give us a little bit of background, let's start with when did you start playing your instrument and what did you do in middle school and high school?
Of course. I started playing my instrument in 7th grade. So I was around 11 years old, and I just happened to fall on it by mistake. I was heavily into sports, and there was a junior high director that stopped by, and we did some music tests and some listening tests, and I guess I did pretty well on the exam, and he mentioned I should be in band. So that's how that came into play. So stuck through 7th grade, 8th grade, played in the wind ensemble and jazz band there. High school, I thought I was going to go the sports route again, and the band director there, he invited the color guard instructors to go to the freshman orientation, and they heard I played trumpet, and they mentioned that I should be in band. Being I guess a geeky ninth grader, I couldn't help but say no. Not to mention they were sort of pretty, so that's how I got stuck in the high school band. But it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
That's awesome. That's great to hear. We have a lot of students in our school that also have that balancing of sports and music. So it's good to hear that you chose the music route. Making a connection to some of our younger students in middle school and high school, what do you think made you successful in music? What are some of the things that you experienced in middle school and high school that made you a successful musician in that age period?
Ooh, that's a pretty serious question. First of all, I was fortunate to have two very good, very inspirational band directors. I say a lot of my success had to do with a lot of listening. Obviously, we didn't have the resources you have now with YouTube and everything else digitally, but back then, my band directors played a lot of records and a lot of CDs, and they would always play the music that we would be performing later on in the season. So I'd really listen in and really try to mimic what I heard on those recordings, and I think that helped me express myself through trumpet at the time.
Now, just like you, and I went through the same things. I was involved in jazz band and everything, but I really didn't have any formal training with any professional musician. Can you think of one director or instructor that really changed your life, and why? Why did they change your life for music?
Okay, well, the first one is definitely my band director, Mr. Bob Anthony. Once again, he sent the color guard instructors that helped me make a decision for music and on freshman orientation. That was the big one, because I thought I was just going to play sports with the rest of my friends. So without that, first and foremost, I wouldn't have joined band. Secondly, he played a father figure role in my life. He was always there. He was always just generous. He was also a trumpet player that definitely influenced me. He was always playing in the morning and or in the afternoon, and he'd always allow me to, sit in, play duets with him, or just play along the certain recordings that we heard. So he was always there. Other than father figure, he was a second friend. Other than the friends that I made in band and sports and everything else, the interaction that I had with him, not only just speaking, but we were able to play our instruments together. I think that's what influenced me more and more.
That's awesome. So played in high school, played in middle school. I got the opportunity to join a youth band, the Santa Ana Winds. You mentioned you started doing drum corps at the age of 15, such a very, very young age. What drew you to drum corps?
Well, luckily enough, the drum corps at the time, the Velvet Knights or VK, they were doing springtime rehearsals in our backyard. They were right on our field in our high school. A couple of the color guarded girls, Trumpet. He was also from the same high school district, and I just started looking around and seeing what it was all about because they were making a bunch of noise and doing a lot of movement. And they said that they had spots available, and they thought I was capable enough to do the marching and playing portion of it. So I just went to one rehearsal one day, and the rest was history. And after that first year, at 15, I did learn a lot, but most importantly, I learned that I just had a passion for performing and playing my instrument.
Yeah, you were very, very successful. By the time I got to meet you in 1993, you were one of the soloists for the Velvet Knights. You had played in 1992. Let's just put some dates into content here. What was the first year that you marched with the Velvet Knights?
Now you're going to show how old I am. Thank you. No, I'm just kidding. My first year was 1989, and my last year was 1996. And then after that, did a couple show bands, jazz bands, just trying to make a little extra money. Taught brass, taught marching, even worked at Disneyland as a Herald trumpeter. And here I am doing drum corps again 20 years later. So that's the path I took, or that's the short timeline anyways.
Sure. The Velvet Knights had a variety of awesome instructors and music technicians and writers, especially in 88, 89, 90, 92. A lot of cool stuff. Anything that you can think of that you brought away from one of those instructors, for developing your sound that now you use with the United States Marine Drum and Bugle Corps?
Well, luckily enough, if anyone knows about the Velvet Knights, I mean, we are known for doing a different type of show, a little more entertaining, involving a lot more humor and everything else. It's just a different style than obviously a lot of the drum corps are doing these days, but entertainment value is always key. But luckily enough, growing up in California, there's just a lot of great caliber players and instructors out there. And luckily for us, during those times in BK, we had people who marched Blue Devils, people who marched Santa Clara. They just had a wealth of knowledge and experience. My soprano bugle instructor at the time was his name was Mike Collins. He was a Blue Devil soloist in '86, and when I started getting in the drum corps, we were finding tapes of old shows of different corps and seeing what they were doing, and just to hear that man play a solo, especially for the Blue Devils, that really opened our eyes. He made us hear what a soprano bugle should sound like, and his sound was so sonorous, it was powerful, and during that time, Blue Devils just had a lot of hotshot, screaming bugle players that inspired a lot of us to want to do the same thing.
Yes, and I'm sorry that my dogs are barking right now. Quit it. Sorry about that, guys. So you mentioned the Blue Devils. You also got a chance to perform with the Blue Devils, also from California. Another great thing. Before I do forget, so I want to drop a name there for the percussionists that are paying attention here. Tom Float, amazing drummer, amazing arranger. We also got to experience that in 92, 93 with the Velvet Knights. But he also came from the Blue Devils. What did you learn from the Blue Devils that you could probably still use today?
The experience that I got with the Velvet Knights was a good stepping stone, if anything. Like I said, a lot of them came from up north. They knew exactly how it ran, the expectations as far as performance, as far as marching, as far as playing. They always reminded us of that, and their knowledge and their expertise, we couldn't help but trust what they were saying because they've lived it. They've been there and done that. So there is a certain expectation when you get to a top 5 corps, other than winning, which some people do, but just the the quality of player that they receive. They have so many great players, instructors, and everything else, and it's just very inspiring and at times a little intimidating to be in that environment. But it makes you perform that much better.
That is so true. Now, let's talk a little bit about Disney being a Herald trumpet. Again, there's so many awesome musicians in Southern California. There's so many different chances and opportunities. What was that experience for you like being a Herald trumpet at Disney?
Oh, it was great. I mean, it's the happiest place on earth. What can you do? But it was seasonal. It was during Christmas time, so I got to use my marching and playing experience, marching and playing with the Herald trumpet, wearing a big nutcracker costume. So being part of the parade was fantastic. And just that time of year, the amounts of people who come there during after Thanksgiving through the New Year, just seeing the streets filled with people and just being able to perform, and just I guess the professionalism that was there. It's not only musicians but dancers and actors and so on and so forth. It was wonderful. I wish it happened all year. It was only seasonal. Pay was fantastic, and the staff there was also top notch.
Speaking of pay, I know we have a lot of young musicians and maybe even their parents. I know for me, my parents were like, really, you're going to make a career out of music? How are you going to do that? They don't get paid very much. But, we did what we could during that time. Eventually, I had to choose something that would give me a consistent paycheck. And so I looked to, of course, the United States Marines and being a Marine musician. What drew you to the United States Marines?
Um, it, it's very similar to what you just said, Marlon. Excuse me. My high school band director had a son who was a Marine, so he was the Marines' biggest fan. He was all about it. In fact, he took me down to San Diego to see a battle color detachment ceremony at the recruit depot. He took me my sophomore year, and just to see all the pageantry and the music and everything else. I thought it was impressive, but as a sophomore, my mind was elsewhere. So, the Marines wasn't necessarily in my thoughts at that time. But considering all my experience with marching and playing and drum corps and everything else, and to hear that the Marine Corps actually had a drum corps, um, that was definitely a selling point. I was getting a little older, working gigs, side gigs, and trying to make money. That sometimes it could be tough year to year, and it was always seasonal. But as I got older, I was getting tired of living paycheck to paycheck, and being in the military, other than just being a performer for the military, just serving your country, that's a pretty big deal. So there's a lot to think about, a lot of soul searching, but a decision that I'm glad I did. Just walked to the recruiter, told him what I wanted to do. He found somebody to come in and listen to me as I auditioned, and everything just fell into place.
I've similar experience. I got to meet Captain Harrison. I'm sure you've met him as well. He's the one that found me in California and said, "Hey, why don't you come and audition for me?" And the rest is history, and it is great. So, what things from marching band, either high school or drum corps, what things helped you to get through boot camp?
Um, well, it takes a lot of discipline to what we do as an activity, marching and being a musician. That takes a lot of hard work. That's a lot of dedication and time that you're spending at perfecting your craft, whether you like playing your instrument or marching or both. So discipline is key. You know how to march. You know how to keep tempo. That's a big thing in the military as far as boot camp is concerned. You spend many hours learning how to march. Um, March well. Discipline. You need to stay quiet. That's easy. I mean, especially if you have an instrument on your mouth. But what else is there? Yeah, one word: discipline. Marching band, any ensemble that you're in, to it teaches you work ethic. Depending on how good you are at it. I know some of us are love to chat and talk to our friends, and that's good too. But when it's time to work, then you put that game face on, and it's time to roll. Whether you're playing sports, whether you're performing, playing a solo, marching, so on and so forth. So that constant performance mode will help you in anything, I feel. But work ethic and discipline is key to surviving boot camp or anything for that matter.
Yes, I definitely echo your sentiment on this, and I'm gonna just take a couple seconds to remind all our musicians that are watching this video. Being a member of the band, being a member of the marching band, concert band, is not only a great skill, but it's really a life skill because it's definitely going to prepare you for any of the challenges that you have. You guys are investing so much time, especially right now through these virtual band camps. You guys are committed, and you're being consistent, and you're putting your music and yourself forward to continue this art, and it's wonderful that you guys are doing that. And as you can see from what Master Sergeant has told us, not only are we learning about music and how to discipline ourselves, but it's going to help you in your future. So continue to do that, continue to explore those things. Master Sergeant, I'm so glad that you mentioned those things for our kids. So continue to move forward. This whole pandemic thing is eventually going to be over. We're going to move on with your lives, but what you learned during this time is super, super essential. I want to take a moment now to move over to the Marine Drum and Bugle Corps. Now, I know right now the schedules are very different because of the pandemic that's going on. But in a traditional work day, what is the work day for a Marine musician?
Our work day, I would say we'll start at 7 a.m. and we go as long as 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Depends on what we need to do at the end of the week as far as our goals and or preparing for a performance. But just like you all doing there, maintenance of our playing abilities, of our playing chops is important. So we definitely get a lot of hours of practice in memorizing music, perfecting music, not only as an individual but as an ensemble as well. And then other than the music side, we need to take care of the Marine side as well. There's always studies in military history, whether a lot of physical activity as well, keeping up our physical selves, our appearance. We have to maintain a certain standard on both ends, not only musically, but physically as well. So we keep our days pretty busy. But once again, it's all determined on what the goal is by the end of the week and or the upcoming performance.
In case we have any students who are interested in auditioning, can you tell us a little bit about the auditioning process for the United States Marine Drum and Bugle Corps?
Oh, of course. I think it's very similar to what you would do applying for any college. You play through scales, whether it be major, minor, or so on and so forth. You need to be able to play certain styles of music. There's sight reading involved, prepared pieces, and then, of course, all the other things that come along with that as far as your tone, your timbre, your musicality. But it's very similar to any college you would go into. You need to perform to a certain level before you join our unit. Unlike the fleet bands, we do not go to a music school after the fact. We audition. It's either a yay or nay. We go to boot camp. Once we're done with boot camp and MCT, Marine Combat Training, we come straight to the unit. After being off the horn that long, I'm sure most of you know it's really difficult to get back all the chops that you had prior. But we're given a 6-month period to not only get our faces back in check, but to memorize at least 25 ceremonial and concert selections before performing with the unit as a whole.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's exactly the same things that I experienced. I remember having to get my chops back and to gear after all those days of boot camp and training. Do you have to have a degree to join the United States Marine Drum and Bugle Corps in music?
You do not. You do not. If I could do it over again, I would come in with one, but you do not. The audition is strictly on your playing abilities. And since we are a marching unit, we now involve a marching audition as well. So, you just gotta show your best skills, your strongest skills, but sound, tone, sound projection, and just knowledge of music of different styles and playing with confidence, and then the marching part as well. You need to be able to control your body. We are marching and playing 80% of the time. So the way you hold yourself up and the way you perform both marching and playing is key to making this unit.
We've seen the DMB perform many times at DCI. It's just a rough estimate. What percentage of the unit's members have DCI experience?
We have over 80% who have marched drum corps once upon a time. And I would say out of the 80 plus members that we have, I'm sure there's at least one who have marched in each of the top 12 corps. So we have a large amount of corps represented. Blue Devils, Santa Clara Vanguard, Cadets Bergen County. I'm sorry, Cadets, my apologies. Blue Coats, Cavaliers, you name it, we have somebody who's marched there.
That is great to hear. Back when I was in there about 20 years ago, very small percentage of our members had any DCI experience. And so it's great to hear that we have a lot more experience like that, and the musicianship has definitely increased with that. So that is great to hear. You mentioned that you got to take care of both houses, both the music part and the Marine part. What are some of the Marine responsibilities that you guys do as a unit?
Well, once you come in as a younger Marine, we still have to take care of our rifle qualifications. We usually take care of most of our Marine obligations and requalifications during the end of the year. So whether it be rifle or pistol, martial arts, and also we do a physical training test twice a year. One that's called the PFT, and then one that's called the CFT. So, man, so many acronyms. Two different styles of physical activity, but we are tested biannually. So when it comes to a 3 mile, well, here's the PFT. So 3 mile run, crunches, and pull-ups, and then a CFT. That's a combat fitness test. It reminds me of an obstacle course, and of course those are all timed, and we need to score appropriately. And it's all age dependent as well. So I'm enjoying that fact that the numbers do decrease as time goes on, but I definitely don't rely on those. But you need to stay physically fit year round, or it'll come back and bite you.
Definitely will. Now, if I recall correctly, a young Marine had the opportunity to score a perfect score. I believe it's 100 10 pull-ups, 100 sit-ups, and you had to run the 3 miles in, is it 18 minutes?
Yes, so you have to run under 18. The crunches have went up, and that is age dependent as well. But the younger Marines had to do 120 crunches within 2 minutes.
Oof.
And down now the pull-ups are up to 23.
23. The highest score I had was 18. That's as far as I could get. 18 pull-ups. That was a long time ago on a planet far, far away. Oh, that is great. All right, let's talk about the current event. Again, right now, our whole nation is dealing with the pandemic. How is the Marine Drum and Bugle Corps dealing with the challenges of social distancing and not being to have the whole unit there and all that good stuff? Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges you guys are facing and how you guys are overcoming that? Because as Marines, we adapt and overcome.
That's true. That's true. Well, we are all required to wear masks. That's for sure. Obviously, the 6-foot rule is always in effect. Playing an instrument does make it very interesting, to say the least. But as we set up our concert arcs, we do set a larger interval, 6 feet or more. We also use less personnel during the performances. That way, we meet the social distancing requirements. But we are wearing masks at least 80% of the day during the workplace, and the other percent is if you're a horn player, you have the horn on your face. So the performances and the number of them have definitely diminished, but our commandant is really strong on getting that performance out there, really showing a Marine presence. So that's why we started performing 2 months ago. It's for a lot less people, but a performance is a performance. And as always, we always want to put our best foot forward and, give them a show.
That is awesome. And for those of you who are watching, there's a lot of great videos out there every Friday night. And actually, I'll ask you to plug the Marine Barracks performance every Friday night. I believe there's one more Friday night performance. You want to tell us a little bit about how those watching can watch the Friday night parade?
Ooh. Well, if you happen to be in DC, those performances start at 8:45 p.m. Excuse me. I suggest you check in early because they are checking temperatures. They are making sure you're abiding to all our awesome rules that we're dealing with during these times. And of course, as they see people in the audience, they are separated quite a bit. They also say that groups that come in together are of the same household. They're really keeping an eye on a lot of that, and fortunately, everyone's been staying healthy. But our last one is at 8:45 p.m. It's roughly about an hour performance. You get a little marching, you get a little pageantry, patriotism, music, and the whole thing. If anything, most importantly, you just get a piece of Marine Corps history.
And of course, I believe the barracks streams it on their Facebook page. So if anybody's interested in doing that, I believe they can watch it through the Marine Barracks Facebook page every Friday night. What do you guys do on Tuesdays? And for those of you, we used to call that EWO, and then you guys moved over to the Lincoln Memorial. What's happening Tuesday nights? The Sunset Parade. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
For the first time in a long time, we had to cancel Tuesday nights. So no sunset parades. I'm sure the majority of it is just the logistics, trying to wrangle up all those people or keep people away from a public monument is really difficult to do. There's just a lot of ins and outs that had to be taken care of. But considering the social distancing, it wasn't possible to pull off this year. So surprisingly enough, we are having one, but it's because the boss man is there. Our commandant's going to be there, and he's going to have a select few of his guests and VIPs and such. And it's almost similar to what we do on Friday nights. So the numbers are going to be limited. People are going to be wearing masks, but more of the same, marching, music, and everything else. But just one performance this year, and we'll see what next year brings.
Perfect. So the reasoning for my questions is I wanted everybody to understand that even though the pandemic has, minimized the amount of performances, the United States Marine Drum and Bugle Corps performs hundreds. And I know that Master Sergeant has heard this in the saying, how many times they perform a year. Do you recall? I don't know if the number has changed, but how many performances, without not counting this year because of course, the pandemic, but in last year, how many hundred of performances do your musicians perform a year?
I think a safe number would be about 250, both indoor and outdoor performances. I mean, during the summer, we used to do every Tuesday and every Friday from spring to the end of August. And then from there, we would do a lot of indoor gigs, playing for scholarship balls, scholarship foundation, up and down the East Coast, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and all that. So it does add up. Not only marching, but standstill performances as well. Plenty of ceremonies, but no less than 250.
So think about that, guys. When you guys are in marching band and you have about a 15-week season and you have like one competition every other week, or let's say you have a competition every week, that would be about 15 performances. And then if you do indoor guard or indoor drumline, that's another 15, that's about 30. And then you do spring and you have all these concerts and all that stuff. You're probably going to add up to about 30 performances in high school. The United States Marine Drum and Bugle Corps is performing 250 times a year. That's a huge commitment. That is a lot of performance. And I will say this, the pay is decent. They do pay you well. I don't want to ask Master Sergeant how much he makes and all that stuff. That's all personal business. But this is a professional gig. You guys are being paid to do this kind of gig. So 250 performances, not even a professional musician who goes on tour performs that many times. So I just wanted to make that point across. All right, I'm going to get really deep with you right now. Again, our students are high school students. They are looking into the future and they're wondering, what in the world am I going to do? if you could travel back in time and pull yourself aside and say, hey, I'm coming from the future, let me give you some advice. What advice would, number one, give yourself, the camera, but number two, what advice would you give musicians in general who are starting their musicianship career?
Well, for myself personally, I think I focus a little too much on band and not enough on general studies. And so if I could do that again and apologize to my English teacher, my math teacher, all those general studies, I would definitely go back and apologize for how I was in high school. Everyone has a certain path for sure. Um, I mean, I loved music so much that it just preoccupied my time and nothing else mattered. So I was just really into playing trumpet and just trying to get good. Hearing people who are better than you always helps, whether it be recordings and or just someone who's in the next chair. Maybe you're sitting in a bottom chair and you want that top spot. That takes a certain amount of work and a lot of drive. So segue into what I would tell someone else who's looking to go in a professional route as far as being a musician. Um, Fundamentals go a long way. Those never leave. Everything you learn in the very beginning, which becomes maybe a little monotonous later on in the future, those are the things that make or break you. That makes you the player that you can become. There's other things, there's more difficult things that we want to achieve, but we need to start from the ground up and then go from there. I understand that playing music is great and we enjoy playing certain things, but all the things that make you get to that certain spot, that makes you a little more, I guess that makes you more of an expert behind your instrument. It's the fundamentals, and that's one thing I don't forget till this day. I'm a little older, but I realize that those things that I worked on, the long tones and the flexibilities and the tonguing, so on and so forth, those are all building blocks that made me the player that I am today.
That is great to hear. So, as the brass instructor at Urbana High School, I do a lot with breathing, and sound development and tone development and stuff like that. What strategies and techniques do you guys use at the Marine Corps to ensure that that sound stays nice and big and dark, as you guys have been doing for many years? What are some of the strategies?
Well, I'm fortunate enough to have a handful of instructors that could take care of the sections on an individual level from each instrument down to low brass all the way to high brass, with all the knowledge that they come in with. And we know that the high brass and low brass is such different creatures, but we do have to remember that we are playing wind instruments. It's the quality of air, it's the quality of breath, the relaxation in our bodies. That's something we can't forget about. Once again, going back to the basics, to the fundamentals. If you're being in marching band, relaxation of the breath and especially releasing, that's a huge key. I mean, if you're tense, you're going to hear it through your instrument. So the more relaxed you stayed, the better you march. That's another key too. That'll help you execute better playing your horn while marching and moving. But it high brass and low brass, such different creatures, but all in all, it's air that makes this thing happen. Everyone comes from a different school of thought. We With all the experience and all the degrees we have here, they've all had different professors and they all have their different approaches as well. But it is a wind instrument, and those are the things you have to think about. And the air makes a sound, it makes the quality of sound, how relaxed you are, and just the approach. You want to make it seem effortless, and we all know that it definitely is not. But we've seen players that look like they just press a mouthpiece on their lips and don't even look like they're working. That's something to achieve. Whether it be, I don't know, it's almost like a Zen process. If you get that relaxed state of mind, standing still, marching, and still create this sonorous sound, that's the main goal for us. So whatever tricks of the trade they may have, or however they want to paint a picture to make that idea happen behind the instrument, I'm all for it. So I think we just have it's a collaborative effort for sure, but whoever is the best person as far as describing it, and most importantly, um, showing how it's done. You could talk about it all day, but unless you hear it and you see it done by somebody, that's another key thing. And we just have some great instrumentalists who could demonstrate it. let the Marines hear what they sound like and show them. That's key. You need to hear it. You need to be shown, and you need to witness it to make it all seem possible. And I think that's key. Just having the greatest examples here. We just have a lot of talented musicians, and sometimes it's almost as simple as saying, listen to that individual, listen to that Marine, try to emulate that.
That's wonderful. As a brass instructor, it makes me so happy to hear you say those things and give that advice to our young musicians. Again, hearing examples, guys, go to YouTube, listen to the drum corps warm-ups. I know there's a video of the United States Marine Drum Corps warming up. Listen to them, see how they produce that sound. Very, very important. Now, not just sound, but also marching. So our visual staff here at Urbana High School spends a lot of time with their bodies and movement and all that good stuff. What do the Marines do to work on their body postures and their movement? Because they flow so seamlessly on the field, especially when you have those dips and all that good stuff. So what are kind of the things that the Marine Drum and Bugle Corps does with marching?
It's not very different than what they do in civilian drum corps or even some of the greatest high school bands. There's no secret to it. There's always different ways to approach it. There's always different ways to talk about it. But it does all come down to understanding your body, what you're using your body efficiently. Where do you need tension? Where do you need to stay relaxed? But that happens for both the marching and the playing part. You just have to be comfortable with your body and understand how it works to make your muscles and to make the air and everything else happen. But no secrets, because when it comes down to it, when I told you that we have over 80% who have marched Dci, we have people who've learned from the best. There's no secret to it. Always a different approach, always a different person doing it. But it's all the same. That goes back to fundamentals too.
Harrison, do you have any questions for us from the students?
Yeah, I have a few great questions to share that some students have submitted over the last hour or so. The first one is, what is the difference between marching with the Marine Drum and Bugle Corps versus marching with a Dci Drum and Bugle Corps? That's from Naaman, one of our drum majors.
Awesome. Well, we are a true drum and bugle corps. We're the only unit using actual bugles. We're not playing on concert instruments. So that is one key factor. The fleet bands, they have several styles of bands. They have wind ensembles, they have funk groups, they have jazz bands. They play different styles of music. I'm not saying that the Marine Drum and Bugle Corps does not, but we do play on bugles. That does limit what we can play, especially since we're still playing on 2/5 bugles in G.
Cool. What and my follow-up to that is, what are some of the challenges of playing on bugles, especially for those of you guys that are coming, maybe the new people coming in from playing trumpet for so many years?
Bugles have been sent away since mid-1990s. So a lot of these people who are coming in are used to playing on their concert instrument. So for one, they got to get used to a different tone in their ear. Everything is lowered. They are lacking a valve. So we are limited to certain keys we could play in. And that is, obviously, we take care of that as far as the arrangements are concerned for music. But it does take a while for them to get adjusted just in their ear. They're so used to hearing concert pitches. You jump to a bugle and you drop down to, concert G, and their world gets turned upside down for a little bit. So that's why we have the 6-month time period to really get adjusted and to learn all the finicky parts about the bugle.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. I have another student question from Stephanie in our trumpet section. What would you recommend to someone if they're interested in joining a service branch, but also interested in continuing with the marching activity?
Well, we have several people who went through that. We have some serious drum corps nuts over here, and they definitely wanted to age out before they came here. So that's one option. If you're in the drum corps and you still want to do it, you could still join the military at 21. I joined at 27, and I heard you could come in as late as 28. And I heard in the Army, they even came in around 30. So that's one approach. The other one is that you could always teach. I know I did that once I got out of high school, teaching brass and marching and stuff like that. We have at least a dozen who still write for local high schools, whether it be music and or marching or both. They go there and they tech. They still teach on their off time, and God bless them because they find time to do it. And with our schedule, it gets quite hectic. And other than that, actually, our executive our executive officer. Let me make sure I get this right. Our chief lawn officer. I apologize. Our operations officer. She goes to Santa Clara during the summer. Then she texts every so often. She goes there right before their their performance season, and she's in and out. She flies out, texts, comes back. So people stay involved in the activity. But the majority of marching happens here with our over 250 performances. I don't know if you're going to want to march anywhere else during the summer. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that's great. And I was curious, you did mention, the different ages that people come in, and earlier you were talking about the different levels of experience. What is your unit like, or the Marines in general, with relation to professional development? Young people that come in maybe without a degree and want to pursue that, or people that come in with a degree but have decided they want to do something else when they get out. How does your unit support that?
Great question. Our command, they're all about education, furthering your education. So whether we have a high school student come in, which we have about 3, or whether we have our people who've lived their lives a little bit and experienced life and come in with their degree, whether it be bachelor's or master's, they're always encouraged to continue with school. With the military, we have great benefits. And depending on what state you live in, you get even more perks. But the fact of the matter is, we're not paying for books. We don't have to pay for school. A lot of it's taken care of through the military benefits. And if they can manage to do it during off time, whether it be online or going to the site on, doing night school, we have plenty of people taking care of that. And it's not necessarily just music. Although we have people pursuing their music careers or furthering their music careers, we have people who go just complete opposite, whether it be business or management, or, all these people who come here, whether they stay here for 4 years or 20 years, they're thinking about their future once they leave here. So why not take advantage of all the military perks and benefits that come with it?
Cool. And another student question: how do you deal with performance anxiety, whether it's your own or that of your fellow Marines coming in, getting into it earlier in their careers?
Wow, that one is deep, and everyone has their own approach to that. Repetition does wonders. I mean, after doing performances over 250 times, you just get used to it. That's I can't say it's the simple way, but for me, I'm just a creature of habit. But I mean, if we're drum corps nuts and we love music and stuff like that, we are creatures of habit. We need to run the same lick all the time, and if we can't get it down, we just work at it until we get it down, and to where we're not making the mistake, not worrying about making mistakes, but where we don't ever make the mistakes again. So I mean, repetition is key for sure, and having that comfortability gives you confidence. If you're nailing the same difficult lick over and over again, there's no reason why you need to fear it. It's just when you're not prepared. That's part of it. For others, some people are they're just ice cold. Every time they go about it, they freaking knock it out. And I wish I had that, but I'm the type of person who needs to run it again and again until it's a habit, and I don't even have to think about it anymore. I wish there was better answers than that, because obviously performance anxiety does affect everyone, and everyone sort of handles it differently. I know I had my moments too when I just didn't feel so great about certain solos. So repetition is key, and feeling confident about what you're playing, and it's playing it over and over until you don't have to think about it anymore. That's the best one I'd give you. Whoever asked that question, I hope you get over it. Enjoy the music. Enjoy what you're playing. Don't worry so much about messing up. I think that's key too. It's a lot of mental. But enjoy what you're doing first before you start worrying about what everyone else is thinking or hearing.
That's great advice. Thank you. Yeah, I think the repetition thing is great. It's probably in some ways a little easier to get over when you're playing 250 gigs a year. You know, the high school band, we get out like, 7 or 8 competitions, a couple football games. It can be tough, but finding other ways to perform, certainly just playing for people, getting out and doing stuff is great. I had one question about the tradition aspect of the Marines. You guys, I think you walk this line really well as an ensemble. We're, in high school land, competitive band, we follow the trends in DCI and in BOA, and we try to get, to stay along with that no matter what, because that's the new thing and that's what's competitive, because that's kind of our job, is to be a competitive marching band. But that's not your job in the Marines. You've got all these ceremonial responsibilities, but you're still going out and entertaining drum corps audiences. So how do you think the Corps finds the balance between an ever-changing activity and some really rich and important traditions?
I would say with our new command, we're definitely trying to toe the line, but we do have to remember that we're Marines. We are based at the oldest post in the Marine Corps, and there are certain things that we need to abide by, and that's for good reason. Obviously, we are so rich in tradition, we can't forget that. The activity is evolving, and although we have a lot of members who have been part of the evolution of drum corps, we do remember, and it's been instilled. We have to remember that we are Marines. We are the keepers of tradition, and that definitely keeps us grounded and humble, because obviously the Marine Corps is bigger than any of its Marines. We got to remember who's served, and all the Marine legends that made the Marines what it is. The drum corps is an activity. Being a musician here is an activity, but we do remember that in our title we are Marine musicians, and Marine comes first. So although we want to evolve and move up with the rest of the drum corps community, we are limited, and it's for a good reason. We don't want to lose touch with who we are.
Cool. Yeah, that's really great. I enjoy you guys every time I see a performance, and I think it's important not only for the sort of patriotic side of the traditions, but also for drum corps tradition. You are the last group, other than maybe some alumni groups, playing bugles, and you're doing some really great marching and some really great rep that we don't hear as much of. And so I think it's great for the drum corps community too, and I'm glad you guys are doing it the way you are. I had a question from a staff member who wants to know about your approach to breathing. We do a lot of breathing exercises. Marlon is like the guy. We do some of the things from the breathing gym, and some that are his take and Marlon originals. And we were just curious if there's you've got a lot of endurance to worry about with some of your performances, and is there like a top secret Marine breathing sequence that you can talk about at all, or how do you guys train for that?
It's a secret. No, just kidding. When it comes down to it, I have instructors that are knowledgeable with their instrument. I have several instructors taking care of each section, from low brass to high brass. And as I was telling Marlon, we know those things are two different creatures, but it is a wind instrument. And lucky enough, with the education and the type of talent that's coming in here, they come in with a wealth of knowledge, and they've learned from some of the greatest teachers and professors all over the country, depending on what school they came from. Not only that, doesn't necessarily mean they had to come from a certain school. With the drum corps training, especially the top 5, I mean, you're getting the top-notch instructors that just not only know how to talk about it, but they know how to back it up. They're great musicians, other than educators. And I think I told Marlon that's the biggest key. Not only have someone who can teach it, but demonstrate it and hearing it on a regular basis. Because once you hear it audibly and hear the sound it creates, especially just using your air and your breath efficiently, I mean, it works wonders. You just got to learn to relax. And we are wind players, and we just want to use our bodies efficiently to just make the most sonorous sound that we can. But there's no secrets. I mean, it comes comes down to fundamentals and just using your body efficiently and learning how to relax. And, I mean, the ultimate goal, trying to make it just look and sound effortless. So sorry, man, no tricks of the trade there. You know, it's all fundamentals and basic blocks where you learn it from junior high all the way through drum corps, all the way to the best universities in the country.
That's great. Mr. Brand, anything else on your end?
Master Sergeant, I'm just grateful that you took the time to be with us. I'm really happy to have you here with us, and I'm going to let Mr. Harrison close us out. But I'm eternally grateful for you. You're an awesome brother, and I really appreciate you.
It's been a pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you for letting me be involved. I hope my answers help some of these kids who are aspiring to do more with music, whether it be military or not. I wish you all the best of luck. And most importantly, just enjoy what you're doing. Make good sounds.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a pleasure. I know the kids have enjoyed it, and we'll hope to maybe when things are in a little different state, we can get you up here in person sometime to hang out and see the band.
For sure. Anytime, gentlemen. Thanks again for letting me be involved.
Awesome.